With The Last Dance documentary ending, I think it's only appropriate for me to dive into not just this Bulls team, but 90s basketball as a whole. I want to dive into much more than just one singular team, but the era as a whole, and why to me, it's the best era in NBA history. When you think of 90s basketball, one team immediately pops into your head. The Chicago Bulls. If you haven't been watching The Last Dance, well, first off, I feel bad for you. But secondly, this team is as good as it gets. 6 finals, 2 three-peats, the best player of all time in Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen as his wingman, and Phil Jackson as head coach. It was a domination that was simply incredible. I could go on and on about how much I love this team, but a certain documentary is already doing that. The Chicago Bulls. Definition, unbeatable. But while we tend to focus on this team, I think it's important to give credit to not just one singular team, but to the era, the teams and players that made this era so loved by me and by many others. Let's take a look at some of the notable teams and players that make up the 90s. Let's first start with the Pistons. In the early 90s, this team was very, very good. They won the NBA Finals in 1990, led by star Isaiah Thomas, who was not liked by many players in the NBA. We'll get there later. Thomas was a Finals MVP, helped lead this Detroit team to a 5-game breeze over a great Portland team, who we'll talk about later as well, in the 1990 NBA Finals. And while Thomas was great, this team was loaded with talent. Joe Dumars, who averaged 20 points per game that season, and Bill Laimbeer, a rim protector whose style of play was, well, dirty.
A dirty player.
This team was led by Chuck Daly, a coach who has never missed the playoffs in his 14-year stint except for 2 times. Overall, this Pistons team was great, and I hope not just recognized for their dirty presence, but their ability to win against some of the greats. We now move into the Lakers. The Showtime Lakers.
Woo! It's showtime!
Kareem had just retired from the NBA in 1989, but still had Magic Johnson on their squad. Magic was the most versatile player of all time, with his main position sitting at point guard, but had the ability to play the 5. In the 1980 NBA Finals, Magic had to play the center position and dropped 42 points. So before I go on and ramble about how much I love Magic Johnson's playing ability, there was much more to this team. James Worthy, Hall of Famer, a Finals MVP in 1988. Worthy was great, and is a player the casual NBA fan might not know about, but should know. This team was also capped off with Mike Dunleavy, and no, not the assistant GM to the Warriors. That's his son. Dunleavy's stint in LA was short, but helped lead this Lakers team to the 1991 NBA Finals against Chicago. Losing to Chicago is a trend here. Stay tuned. We next explore the New York Knicks, the mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden. The best place to play basketball is in this arena. Madison Square Garden hosted an NBA Final in 1994, and the Knicks were on their way to a second straight Eastern Conference Final in 1995 when, well, this happened. But seriously, the Knicks were really good. That feels so weird to say. Patrick Ewing, John Starks, a legendary head coach in Pat Riley, who formerly coached the Lakers, and the Knicks were 1 win away from winning the NBA Finals in '94. Hakeem went off though, the curse in New York still exists, and they still look to find their first championship since 1973, when this guy was on their roster. So I just discussed the team that lost in the '94 Finals, but how about the team that won? The Houston Rockets, Hakeem Olajuwon. No other explanation. The man that was unstoppable in Houston, the college, and Houston, the NBA team. With MJ out of the league in '94 and '95, a team had to step up to win the finals when he was gone, and that team was Houston. The Rockets in '94 finished with 58 wins, was a 2 seed heading into the playoffs, and boy did they live up to their expectations. And on paper, it seems like Hakeem did all the work, but this team was rounded off by Vernon Maxwell, Robert Horry, yeah, that guy who used to play with MJ, Kenny Smith, who all of you know, and a head coach in Rudy Tomjanovich. And in 1995, this team did it again, exceeding the odds. Entering the playoffs as a 6 seed, they went through Utah, Phoenix, San Antonio, and Orlando in the finals, the good old duo of Shaq and Penny. An unreal run by Houston, and to celebrate, they got 2 rings. that would soon end when a certain guy had the famous words, "I'm back." Bulls, Lakers, Pistons, Knicks, Rockets. Surely, there can't be much more teams left. Oh, there's more. I now move on to the Seattle SuperSonics, and the fact that they no longer have an NBA team is severely depressing. The SuperSonics in the 90s were headlined by the iconic duo in Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp. Payton could play both sides of the ball on an efficient level every night, and Shawn Kemp, a 6-time All-Star, was ruthless at the rim and extremely athletic. This duo took a Phoenix Suns team, a team we'll talk about later, to 7 games in the 1993 Eastern Conference Finals, lost, but the Suns would lose to, yeah, that guy. Why are we even surprised? Seattle did make the finals in 96, but when you give MJ motivation, he will prove anyone wrong. George Karl, the coach of the SuperSonics, pissed off Jordan before Game 1 of the finals, and Jordan made it a mission to piss him off with his poetic basketball skills. Jordan went off, they won the series in 6 games, and Seattle blew their only chance at a ring during this era. But many teams did that, and while they did alright the next couple seasons, things went to shambles. George Karl was fired, and the SuperSonics did not just lose their identity, but their entire franchise 10 years later. The Phoenix Suns are now our next topic, and this team was very similar to Seattle. They made the finals in 93, beating Seattle in the Eastern Conference Finals, and having a shot to take down MJ from his three-peat. Phoenix was good. Like, very good. This team had 7 players average more than 10 points per game and was led by Charles Barkley, who was one of the most underappreciated players of all time. He won an MVP in 1993. To win an MVP with all of the great players I mentioned in this video, big props to you, Chuck. But after 1993, this team was really not back, but hey, unlike Seattle, they did not just go away. This team was soon to be led by Steve Nash, a 2-time MVP, but his era is for a different video. The Suns were not the flashiest, most outgoing, or even the best team of this era of basketball, but they were a great team, led by Chuck and by many underrated players by the likes of Dan Marley, Kevin Johnson, Richard Dumars, and many more. The next team I want to talk about are the Portland Trail Blazers. The Trail Blazers made the finals in 92, facing off against, well yeah, the Chicago Bulls. Safe to say that this is the best dynasty ever. Anyway, Portland was headlined by Clyde the Glide Drexler, who actually went over to Houston to play with his college teammate Hakeem Olajuwon in 1995, winning the championship. Clyde was coached by Rick Adelman, and just like the Suns, was a very well-rounded squad. They had 6 players average over 10 points per game and defeated a tough Jazz team in the Western Conference Finals to play Chicago in the NBA Finals. Oh, and just wait till I get to Utah. The Trailblazers lost in 6 in the 1992 NBA Finals, and just like many other teams, their shot to win a title and take down MJ and the Bulls was a failure. That's not to say that Clyde and his team was not amazing, but it takes a lot to beat the best, and they couldn't do it. The last team I am so excited to discuss is the Utah Jazz. My favorite all-time team is the 98 Jazz, and for so many reasons. They were led by a stud duo in John Stockton and Karl Malone, 2 totally different guys who just seemed to click on the basketball court. And after 1994, one of the best shooters of all time came into the squad by the name of Jeff Hornacek. Hornacek shot 44% from 3 in 98, and that wasn't even his best season. They were head coached by Jerry Sloan, former assistant head coach of the Chicago Bulls. He then came to Utah as an assistant before finally getting the title of head coach. So this Jazz team I obsess over went to the finals in 1997 and 98. That's not to say though that John Stockton made the playoffs every single season as a Utah Jazz member. They were never able to get over that hump until 1997 when John Stockton made this shot against the Houston Rockets.
Control and get the floater.
Stockton, open 3. Hit it! John Stockton sends the Utah Jazz to the NBA Finals.
So in 1997, this Jazz team lost to the Bulls. Wow, I never saw that one coming. It was thanks to a Steve Kerr shot in Game 6, and something does tell me that Kerr would turn out to be a very good head coach. But, unlike other NBA teams, this team didn't just have one singular opportunity. They went back to the finals in 1998. The first time the Bulls had a played team they played before in the finals. The Jazz played well, and in Game 6 they were winning late. The Jazz were up by 2 with a minute to go when MJ went crazy. I would try and sum up exactly what happened, but it's so crucial for you to go back and watch the final minute of this game. In simpler terms though, Jordan hit the shot, finished the night with 45, and walked out of Utah with his 6th championship, his 2nd three-peat, and was the best player of all time at the moment. No questions asked. I genuinely believe that if Utah forced a Game 7, they would have won the series. The NBA used to incorporate the 2-3-2 series in the NBA Finals, but switched in 2014. Game 7, which would have been Michael's first of his career in the finals, would have been in Utah, and Stockton and Malone would have been hungry for a championship. I think it happens. But hey, I've learned never to bet against the greatest. If there's anything you can take away from this video, I hope you find a love and a huge respect for this era of basketball. It was fun, intense, and featured the best team and player of all time. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, follow us on Instagram at allsportsculture, and we will catch you guys next time.